Hi, today's video, I'm gonna do it on video games are not cutting it anymore. Go in depth into basically how I grew up with video games, but it's been kind of where I would buy a game, but I wouldn't really like play through it. I wouldn't get as much enjoyment. That's kind of why I started this channel and kind of why I think if I stream and have an audience or we're kind of going through it together, I would have a better experience overall with the video games because I kind of don't want to be like just playing by myself, that stereotype. And ever since I came to the Lord and Savior, it's kind of been like, are video games really following God's will? So asking those tough questions and also just, creating instead of just consuming. This world is all about consuming, and basically, our attention is being, we get paid. The companies get paid on what our attention span is looking at constantly 24/7. Nowadays, there's subscriptions instead of just buying like the game outright and like just fatigue. I don't know, like it's not like the glory days anymore, and like nowadays, um, with all the subscriptions and battle passes, it feels like a chore. Like it feels like a chore that I have to do to spend so many hours in the game and not really get the enjoyment that I used to before. Maybe I'm just getting older. I'm turning 30 this year, so creating content is in the step in the right direction. Just, I'm hitting 30, so some people will say I'm young. I mean, I have accomplished a lot in my life. I do have a degree, so I'm grateful for that. And it is engineering, which is mechanical engineering, which is a good degree. Like a lot of people say that you're wasting your time if you're going for a bachelor of arts degree. But in general, nowadays, I grew up with video games, but I feel like I want like a community, I guess, is kind of where I'm going with this. And that's kind of why I wanted to start streaming, but first like build an audience and what can you expect from from me is I'm trying to be more consistent. I'm off Thursdays through Saturdays. So hopefully I could stream Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Friday night mainly. Saturdays a maybe because I do have to wake up early. I have to be at work at 6:30, and it takes me half an hour to get to work. Ideally, wake up at 5:30 to 5 is when I need to wake up. But I feel like I'm not a morning person. So back to the topic. So video games are not cutting it anymore. Um, I feel like I don't know if it's just me or I do have seen some videos about this topic, but just like the whole industry and like the AI, like I guess we lost trust in the companies. I guess everything's just a cash grab nowadays, like how can we monetize our consumer base? It's kind of where the companies are headed. Live service games are kind of taking over and like that's kind of where like every company wants to just earn more money, right? That's basically the business model, capitalism at its finest. But even just in general, gaming have I've come to like a fatigue, or I gotta do it for a purpose, and hopefully with streaming and creating content, I feel a little bit more purpose and more fulfilled with it, and um, I'm getting the hang of it, but um, I'm becoming more wanting to maybe dive into faith based content. Like I don't really want to. promote video games if it's not the will, the way, and the truth and the life of the Lord and Savior. So I don't want to promote it because I feel like I just need to have a stronger relationship, or like, like that depression, or like those things that you're going through and you're just, and then video games is just seen like as an addiction, especially if you're just doing yourself and not creating content with it, and purposeful content. But I want to take this channel into more faith based, but I'm not too sure on the video games and like streaming, and if I should stream video games, cuz don't know if it's the way, the truth, and the life. I feel like it could open up portals, and just finding my own path. But maybe maybe I can just pray on it and ask the Lord and Savior where He wants me to take this. You know, maybe I'll just start it off, but eventually I will taper off of it. But video games hasn't cut in for me like I did when I used to like just wake up and grind and just play video games for the fun of it. It's like the fun has been taken out, or the enjoyment of it. Maybe it's because I almost passed away, and now I just look at life differently, and I don't want to I don't want to be just playing video games but not creating content with it. So hopefully if I create content with it, for you too, I believe everyone should create content instead of consuming. Just keep consuming only does so much for you, and creating content, a little bit harder, but it's more fulfilling. And I think everyone should create content. And me, I can't just say create content and I create content myself. So that's why I dove into it. I bought a new PC, 9070 XT AMD GPU with a 9800 X3D Ryzen 7. So it's a really good computer, and I got it off of Amazon. But with 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 all that, like just playing with friends, and like, like I gotta be like happy with myself. Like I gotta enjoy being alone too, cause let's just say like I become really famous, or I become viral or something like that. I don't think that's the ultimate goal. I mean, you do have higher reach, but I think it's the growth. I think it's the process. It's the journey, not the reward. It's the journey. It's like the growth. I think that's way more important, and I believe that's where I'm heading right now. And I always wanted to create content, but I never took that first step. And now that I have a job as a manager, I feel like I don't just want to rely on my work. I want to have a backup, but vice versa. I don't want to rely 100% on content yet financially. Hopefully one day I could find it financially, but I always envision myself working the 9 to 5, or working a 9 to 5 to get a rest from content creation, because I see like you could get burnt out, and I just want to take things slow and steady. And um, I do want to use video games for hopefully to reach the faith based community, but I really don't believe that I should use video game, or video games can't. Maybe they can be used, but I don't know. I'll just pray on it and let the Lord and Savior guide me. So, um, right. So, if anyone it wants to start out streaming, or in general, I suggest just diving into it and taking the first step. But for me, I just want to make sure everything's okay. Like everything is perfect, which is why it took so long. Like I had the idea of streaming since 2020, around there. I mean, I did hear videos here and there, but now I'm at a place where, I mean, the Lord and Savior just brought it upon me. It was kind of insane, and me just expressing myself through content, I feel like this is what I was like born for, or like what I was missing from my life. I always wanted to create. I always wanted to do more. You know, I always during college I grew up with instead of listening to music, I would listen to motivational speakers. Like everything is always impossible until someone does it. Always doing that impossible, leaving a legacy. The only person stopping you is yourself. I'm a manager, and I would say to the employees, like, if you're really in it for the money, then you're not. If you're not passionate about what you're doing, at the end of the day, it will show in your work and how you hold yourself. How you do anything is how you do everything. And I have all these ideas, all these things in my mind, but I never, you know, walk the walk instead of just talk the talk. So hopefully this could inspire others. And I wanted a story to tell, honestly, before I started streaming, and I feel like I have that story, and it's finally coming all together, you know. And I thank the Lord and Savior again. I do have a video a little bit going over my whole journey about me almost passing away, and like just seeing life differently. Like this is me making sure I don't have no regrets in life. I don't regret anything I ever done in the past, and I forgive everyone that's ever hurt me. You know, um, I don't hold any grudges, and I did what I did at the time because I thought that was right thing to do. And I hope people that are in high school nowadays, I feel like they have it really tough, especially if you're trying to navigate through this world of technology and like isolation and like it, I feel like I'm more introverted, but just coming out your shell and like I said, creating instead of just consuming and just starting, like just throwing yourself out there. And I was looking for, I mean, I have a job, but it's not in my field of engineering. So I was thinking of getting an engineering job, but I'm just happy to even have a job nowadays with the job market and everything, you know? I mean, even my brother has been searching for like 6 months, and he's gotten interviews, but you know, it's just so this AI is like a double-edged sword. It helps us it's help us create and like get through the day, but at the end of the day, I feel like I guess this is just how the 21st century is heading, and I feel like AI is a tool that has hurt us and helped us at the same time, but ultimately, like technology in general has hurt us, and like everything's online nowadays, and like even online dating. Don't even get me started with that. That's probably another topic for another video. But for me, ever since I came to the Lord, like I feel like um online dating, just briefly go over it, like ever since I came to the Lord and Savior, I just want to meet someone in person. The story behind it. If you just met on an app, it's not really really like that. It's like taking the easy way out is kind of what I'm trying to say. You know, and I just want to meet someone in real life and have a genuine connection with them instead of me going behind the whole texting and all the rules that they say. But I mean, at the end of the day, ever since I came to the Lord and Savior, I just don't really want to deal with dating apps. I don't. I think the people that are on there, you are searching for love and everything, but at the end of the day, Girls get too many likes and guys don't get enough likes, and it just causes depression on both sides and just a whole false hope, kind of. I mean, you could. Uh, I just feel like it's just a hookup culture and all that nonsense nowadays. But that's besides the point. It's a topic for another video. But um, like me, like having like just starting and just throwing your just whatever comes to mind, just expressing your ideas, in your content, and just being yourself, you know. So for video games, like I grew up like with video games. Like I remember the first handheld I ever had was a 3DS. My brothers and sisters got me into like this Nintendo 64. I was born in '96, so Nintendo 64 and all those classic games. And nowadays, the new generation just plays like battle royale games, like live service games, and don't really play any of the classics. And I just feel like it's a lost art nowadays, even with game developers. The Unreal Engine and like the AI, the whole AI thing is just like I said, just a double-edged sword. Like AI slop, like in Call of Duty, how they would say like it's supposed to make our lives easier, but at the end of the day, it's not making our work genuine and it's basically losing trust. The whole job market is lost with the AI because you have to use AI words to basically you go through an AI screen that if you don't have the right experience, which nowadays the entry level is like 5 years, don't even get me started with that. And then, but back to the video games, like I just want like for those that are just playing video games and just thinking, am I really wasting my time? At the end of the day, if you're not making money off of it, I don't want to have that kind of philosophy. But if you're not getting fulfillment from it at the stage of life you're in or the mindset that you're in, creating content and creating just in general, I feel like is the truth, the way, and the life. And that's kind of why it's led to me right now. And you could start at any age, you know? But for me, I feel like I'm an overthinker and I want everything to be perfect. But not everything's gonna be perfect. So just starting and streaming. But I want to gain like I'm not like I did my first stream already, but I feel like picking the right game and like I just want to get the commentary and like the talking down first. That's what I suggest for anyone that's more of an introvert and like starting out is just talking to the camera basically and getting your ideas out there and eventually you'll gain it's like a muscle, muscle memory and like you'll you'll gain the skills. You'll see what works for you, what doesn't. But at the end of the day, how much time you put in is how much time you get out. So definitely just not cutting off corners and making sure it's quality, you know? Making sure it's quality over quantity. At the end of the day, I feel like is the right way. And the goals for me for the future, like how do I see myself in 10 years? I told myself I have like maybe I think it's like 5 years. Like at 35, I wanted to settle down. Now nowadays it's like 30, 35 is when people are settling down instead of the younger years. But for me, I want to um, basically give myself to the Lord and Savior and love Him with all my heart, which is not easy. Basically, denying the flesh and carrying your cross. And I want to find Him and fulfill His will, not my own. He knows what I want before I even ask for it. And regardless of what happens in life, I believe that I'm living out the pages that the Lord and Savior has set out for me. And He's guiding me without me even knowing. And then he's been there the whole time. you know? And at the end of the day, um, we're all we're all going through something, regardless of how much money you make, regardless how many followers you have, regardless of what you think that other person is perfect. No one is perfect. And again, regardless of how famous someone is, they are going through something. And I feel like the more famous you are, the more you have to go through, and the more like keeping it professional, and the more everything you say could be held against you, especially with the internet, you know. So that's kind of why like I appreciate that I'm turning 30 this year. So 29. My birthday is December 20th. And I'm grateful that I'm 29, starting really like starting out the channel, and like starting out with a mature mindset, having like not 100% dedicated that financially to streaming or content creation yet. Like uh I envision myself still having a 9 to 5. I feel like I wanted to like set myself apart, but I feel like eventually if I do get big enough, I would have to leave my job, but I feel like having that 9 to 5 kind of will help me get away from the whole content creation side and everything, and help me connect more of my audience. That's just my thought process right now, but who knows in the future. But and for anyone that wants to stream or create content, and you're starting out right away, I would just do it. Just have your 9 to 5, 8 hour shift. Luckily for me, it's a 10-hour shift, and I work 4 days and I get to rest 3 days. So I believe that's a little bit of a better schedule for me, and like for people in general. So if you work at Amazon, you work 4 10s usually. So you work 10-hour shifts. The only thing that kind of scares me is during peak, which is during like Christmas and Thanksgiving. We work 60 hours basically. I mean, technically it's 50, but managers technically technically 12 hours shifts 5 days a week. So that's kind of like 60s. Last peak, that's what I was working. So that's 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 a lot, but I have a good work ethic thanks to my father. I've been working since I was 10 years old, like outside and like not getting paid with during my birthday and Christmas, I would get $100, and to me that was the world. And that's kind of how I grew up, now with money, which I appreciate a lot now that I work a decent job, and of course higher than minimum wage. I get paid around 70, around there a year, 70K. And then that's just the salary though. So I want to encourage people to really think this through, cuz if even if you're like famous, like I said, you're held to a higher standard, I believe. And the more people, the more reach you have, the more responsibility you have. So I mean, you would reach different people, but I'm just saying to just be careful out there, keep it professional, you know? And you don't know who's watching, you don't know who's listening. So, um I think the best strategy, now that I've kind of delved into it, is to gain an audience through long form and short form content, and then go live. I think that's a more less stressful situation for you. And like I said, just put yourself in front of a camera, think about a topic, whatever comes to mind, and just express your ideas. And it's kind of the thing that kind of inspired me is kind of like Sam Soliak. Doesn't have that much editing or anything, you know. You don't need to have all that fancy camera cut. You don't need to have that fancy intro and everything. Not not yet. Maybe over time I would get one. but just throwing yourself out there and just keeping it professional. Everyone has a story to tell, and everyone has gone through ups and downs in life. And I feel like now we live in scary times. So really think about everything that you do. Everything that you do matters. See everything like as a test. You know, like the only person stopping you is yourself. So like really enjoy your being by yourself. Really be happy for before you ever bring someone else into your life. So I always envision myself creating content, having a stable job, and having a family. I always envision myself with that, but ever since I came to the Lord and Savior, it's up to His will. I came when I was reading the Bible to the realization that if I don't find someone in this life, that was the will of the Father. So I feel like I should just worry about myself, continue my own path, level up. Now that I think about it, I think when I was like 18, young and naive, I was in college 5 hours away up north. And then I kind of remember me really, really liking this girl, and I you know, kind of made my move, and I was young and naive, didn't know what I was doing, you know, and, caught up in my emotions. So really, you know, I have no regrets in life. It didn't work out, but I took that leap of faith, and like I felt like I was rejected and kind of scarred, which is why like I turned to fitness. I turned to like being cool and like, you know, I kind of had that idea that video games are for nerds kind of thing. Well, now that I've grown up, that's kind of strayed away from that. But during that time when I was 18, I stopped playing video games and I really focused on myself, fitness wise and like socially. That's kind of why like I kind of wanted to join a frat because for the social aspect, I thought it would fix me, but it really doesn't, uh, you know. And just taking that first step, you know, venturing into the unknown, having that confidence and like, you know, it would ultimately make me better. And I just seen growth ever since. And now that everything's come like full circle, you know, I just thank the Lord and Savior. And like, I really do believe that there's something beyond this life, you know. I've seen things and heard things and like things you can't even imagine. And I'm just here as a messenger, to be honest, for the Lord and Savior. And I feel like that's way more important than me um just throwing video games and like being viral and creating like brain rot content, like content that's not fulfilling and just there to grab your attention and like keep your attention. Like I really don't want that. I don't envision my channel being that. Like I prefer to have impact and have a small following, but we grow, learn, prosper together. So I don't mind sharing all my ideas, all my secrets. Because even though if you share everything, walking the walk is way harder than talking the talk and just hearing things, consuming. That's why I encourage everyone to create. And an idea just popped up in my head. If you're scared of posting things online, I would just create content and just save it somewhere. Save it on your phone. I have iCloud. I have an iPhone, iOS, and I would just save the videos. If you're scared of like, for me, like I have like this phobia of like posting content or making sure it's perfect or thinking about what people would say. So for me, instead of streaming, I create these videos and then save them, and then you could release them later on or look back on it or just reflect on it, and it's less stressful, I would say, you know. And don't be afraid of what people are gonna say or do or anything, but just start creating content, start talking to yourself, start expressing ideas. You know, the devil wants you to keep everything to yourself, and he wants you to not express anything and just be scared and not live out your dreams. You know, just be like a walking zombie, I would say. You know, just consuming content and not really creating something that would impact others. I think that's the ultimate goal for me, is to help others, you know, through their stressful situations that they're at. You know, there's always people better and worse than in our positions, and just be grateful for where you're at. If you have a place to stay, a place to eat, you know, there's people out there in the streets that are really struggling out there, and you know, just have no judgment or remorse for anything that you have done. You know, everyone has a purpose, and everyone should seek their dreams. You know, it's not easy taking that first step, but that first step will turn into a marathon. So I want everyone to create instead of consuming. You are consuming right now if you're watching this, but hopefully you get inspired to create, save that content, and then maybe you could upload it later. You know, just learn. You know, like, also, like, schools nowadays, in high schools, you know, like, you have that stereotype of not learning. Well, I guess maybe you're not mature enough or not in that mindset. But how you do anything is how you do everything. If school's not for you, you know, just create, you know, work on skills, learn, you know, have a job, you know, like, you know, get your permit too, your driver's license and everything, you know, get that all sorted out. I'm thankful that I grew up with a bright mind, but I didn't grow up always as a popular person in high school. So I kind of understand where people, where the young generation is coming from. And I feel like, to be honest with you, I feel like the Naruto kid, like, growing up, like, I feel like my best friends were all, um, they were in AP classes, that's advanced placement, and they were all, I was always searching for like a community or like acceptance. You know, I always struggled with that going in high school. So I would say, you know, like, getting a job when you're 16 or as early as possible, earning money, earning financially, you know, earning the value of a dollar, you know, that way, and also doing things on your own, like doing your own laundry, doing your cooking for yourself, you know, like just taking hold of your life, you know. I've done that for so many years when I was living by myself, but I encourage everyone to get ahead in life, you know. But I'm just thankful that my mom and dad are still alive, and my brothers and sisters are still alive, and everything for the most part is going well right now. I just feel like I've been dealing with, I guess it's depression. I don't really like to call it that, but because when you put a name to it, it becomes into life. But I would say I wasn't fulfilled currently, which is why I started creating content, and I feel I feel like this is what was missing in my life. And it wasn't until I started creating content that I realized that that taking that first step and just, you know, just not psyching yourself out, like, you know, just being in your own thoughts. I do believe everyone's different, but I feel like technology is a double-edged sword, and hopefully you are using it for the right purposes. And I want, again, to reiterate, I want to help people create create things into their lives. Maybe it doesn't have to be content, but I just feel like that's where the world is heading, and like, just documenting your life, and like every things that you do in everyday life might be simple to you, but not simple to others, you know? So hopefully this video helps you out in sparking that idea of creating content. Now, if you don't want to post it or upload it, just save it on your phone or save it on your computer in general. And you never know, you can never connect the dots looking forward, only backwards. So just have faith and have faith, in what you're doing, you know, and hopefully this helped you out. Thank you.